with entrepreneurs around the world, celebrating entrepreneurship globally. We're going to be talking about the global bridges that we build, as well as talking with some entrepreneurs live about what makes them tick and what they enjoy about entrepreneurship. And then finally, we're going to have a discussion with Dr. Andrew Nerlinger of the PandemicTech Accelerator about the conditions of the COVID-19 pandemic and how our entrepreneurs are helping solve some of the world's most difficult problems. We welcome you today for Impact Innovation 2020 Virtual Edition. I want to introduce our CEO and founder, Koym. Koym has worked on 17 skunk works around the world and disrupted markets with entrepreneurs through impact innovation. I'm going to turn it over to Kevin so he can give you some more information about impact innovation and how Tech Ranch is changing the world.
Hey, good morning, y'all. It's great, or I should say, since I see people from around the world, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on what your part of the world. Welcome to the Impact Innovation Forum. I'm excited to be here with you. It's interesting with all the changes of what's happened with South by Southwest being canceled here in Austin. This is our 5th year of doing an Impact Innovation Forum. And what was interesting was we started looking at how we could actually include more people because not everyone can come to Austin during this part of the year. And so it's interesting because we started planning on going virtual, and then with the restrictions that were brought by the coronavirus, in some ways, I think that this is actually, I want to say better, but it's interesting that, that this way we can be more inclusive with everyone. I'm real excited about all the hard work that's been put in by both our entrepreneurs, by our ecosystem partners, as well as our team. And I want to applaud our team. They were up late last night and working very hard this whole week. So, although I might be the face of Tech Ranch, I do have quite a strong team behind me. It's one of the exciting things about what's happened over the last few years as Tech Ranch has grown to actually have so much stuff happening. And over the last 3 years, many of you know, I've now been to 22 countries working with entrepreneurs just in the last 3 years. Tech Ranch has taken on a different frame than what it's happened in the past. You might know that we had a co-working place. I opened Boston's first co-working space, but we exited that business so that we could take this business, the business that we call the Venture Outfitter, to the next level. And I see that happening. Thank you to the entrepreneurs that have made that possible, that have worked with us, and thank you to my team as well. It's been really critical and very exciting. So let's talk a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. We've had these Impact Innovation Forums. We've had everyone from President Fox of Mexico, the Premier of South Australia participate. This year we had delegations everywhere from Norway to Australia that were going to be in the room with us. And as news came about the coronavirus slowing things down, it put a damper on everything that we had originally planned. But if you'll work with us today, the thing that's interesting about this is because we're not only broadcasting through Zoom, going to YouTube, also to Facebook, and then we're going to hear from voices quite literally around the world. Like I said, from Nigeria to Siberia. You'll actually hear entrepreneurs that are part of the process and stuff like that today. I'm real excited about it because in some ways, since we work a lot of the times with entrepreneurs that are on the very front lines, we get to see technology that the world's just not seen before. And that's real exciting about it. It's all about, these numbers. Can we actually, now that we've worked with more than 6,500 entrepreneurs from 42 countries, since we've had more than 750 solutions deployed, what do we mean by a solution? That is truly the way that we're focusing on what we think counts is, and I'll tell you about impact innovation in just a second, but we count the number of companies that have deployed a product in the field in impact innovation. I'll talk about that a little bit more in the next slide or two. So first and foremost, welcome. I actually want to make sure that I say welcome to everyone. It's exciting to be here. It's a little bit interesting to be doing this virtual. Feel free to interact with us. We have the chat open. My team is actually paying attention to questions you might pose. If there's something that you'd like to do, I'd like to be anyone that's ever seen me live in front of 400 people, which I absolutely miss right now, to not be able to see you directly face to face. I like to have us do a lot of interaction, if at all possible. Now, this is a new meeting for me and for our team. So, work with us a little bit. We're doing our best to actually make sure that we deliver on the dream of what's happening and the vision that I've held for a period of time. But I would like to interact with like that. I want to say thank you to our sponsors. There's a group of sponsors that have made this possible. Our Capital, which is, there's a private equity firm called EFM Capital from Mexico. It's the top private equity firm in Mexico, is opening up an office here in Austin because they recognize the power of the innovation bridge from Mexico that we built with Mexico. We'll talk a little bit more about this in a few slides, but make a long story short, thank you to Art Capital for what they've done. Thank you to DITA. DITA is an accounting firm that works on, especially across international borders. They supported our Pioneer program very heavily. We'll talk a little bit more about that if you're interested. For those of you all that are coming to Austin or looking at doing US market entry, DITA is a great partner through that whole process. The World Affairs Council and Ben Ramirez at the World Affairs Council has been a strong advocate for Tech Ranch all the way back to when he was a City of Austin economic development employee. So thank you, Ben and your team, for helping us build bridges around the world and deliver on this work. IEEC, which is called the Inter-American Education Consortium, is the main nonprofit that Tech Ranch does a lot of work with. The nonprofit is essentially, for Tech Ranch has got this, we're kind of like this talent scouts that we discover talent, develop talent, connect talent to opportunity and help it scale. That's on our for-profit side. IAC is the nonprofit side that gives access to this capability to some of the entrepreneurs that might not have access. Certainly if you're in Austin, Texas, you can come take one of our programs and stuff like that. But if you're on the front lines of some issue around the world, a lot of times what IAC is doing is actually making sure that this program and these programmings are available over here. Then the Eurasia Foundation is the funder behind the company, the bridge that we're going to talk about that we're building between Central Texas and Central Russia. You're going to hear from some of those entrepreneurs. Thank you to the Eurasia Foundation for support of that program. And then finally, Juice Consulting. Juice is an amazing PR firm. They've been really great to work with. They're supporting our Pioneer program as well, especially for those of you that actually have technologies you want to bring in. A lot of times you need a PR partner to make sure you can bust through the noise of the US market. The US market is the most competitive market in the world. A partner like Juice for driving PR is very important. We have other partners that are involved in other programs. So these I want to especially acknowledge for making the Impact Innovation Forum 2020 possible. So thank you all for that. And we'll hear more as we do a lot more of this virtual format into the future. Because we're going to step across this line into the virtual format, for our other sponsors and the other programs and things like that, we'll tell you much more about that coming soon. So today's topics, we're going to highlight our entrepreneurs. The entrepreneurs are the hero of the story, bar none. There's nothing else to say other than the entrepreneurs. We're going to talk about that. Our international bridges, what are the bridges that we've been building? You're going to hear about 6 different locations that we've been building bridges with, different types of bridges. We'll talk about the power of a bridge and why that matters. And then one of the things that came out of one of our venture outfitter programs recently was a couple of our entrepreneurs, like one of them in Italy and one of them in Siberia, said, hey, wait, we can actually collaborate right now and make something happen. And we're going to talk about that and a few other things about how this can apply to COVID-19. And it's really empowering to see this. And so I know that a lot of y'all are seeing the news, all the negative news about what's happening and stuff like that. I really hope that if, pay attention to that part, because some of these entrepreneurs actually have the solutions. And part of what we see is really powerful is how to make those connections between those different groups, so that that by helping entrepreneurs that are on the front lines, in this case, in Italy and in Siberia, that is powerful. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a few slides. So what is impact innovation? Impact innovation, so I've been a long-term technology entrepreneur. Some of you know I worked for Steve Jobs at the very beginning of my career. Part of the idea about it is I fell in love with technology. I'm like, what you can do with entrepreneurship and technology is really powerful. But the key thing that we wanted to really dig in on with this advent of why TechBranch was started was this idea that we can take innovation and we can apply it to human need. And instead of just doing technology, and nothing against businesses that are like, one guy finds another guy in a bar and, help you connect with your friends in a bar. That's okay. It's okay. Any kind of entrepreneurship is good, but the thing that I think is really interesting and I really love about my job, and I think our team loves about what we're getting to do, is this whole idea about, let's work with the entrepreneurs that are truly transforming the world, truly at the front lines. That we call that impact innovation, not just social impact, but social impact technology that's driving, solving human needs. Now, what you're going to hear about a little bit today is in the fields of biosecurity, like we're going to talk about with COVID-19, but also physical security, mental security, food security, a bunch of different things like that. And so the idea is, how do we deliver on the promise of creating prosperity for everyone in the world? The technologies that really are needed for doing that, delivering on prosperity, you want to have biosecurity, mental security, food security, the physical security. If you get all that baseline in place, then all the other things that you're doing, is all gravy, right? But if we can build that standard so that it's accessible to everyone around the world, that's exciting. The entrepreneurs you're going to hear from today are all about that. Now, I should say one other thing about our entrepreneurs. We had a lot of submissions. We actually had, given that we worked with more than 6,500 entrepreneurs in 42 countries, and then we actively have quite a few in our Venture Outfitter program, in our recent Concierge Connections program, in our Pioneer program, we couldn't hear from everybody and keep this format to just a couple of hours. And so, as we're talking about these different entrepreneurs from around the world, I just want to make sure that that, we didn't get to put everyone in there, and we're looking now. My team is like, hey, this is interesting. Now, most everyone got us videos at the very last minute, and we're like, hey, okay, this is great. So we had to scramble a little bit. I want to apologize in advance to the entrepreneurs that we didn't get to include, and it's just from the standpoint of format. And know that everyone that submitted, we are going to make sure that you get exposure for this, because you are the hero of the story. And part of what we want to do is make sure that you get access to the resources and relationships that you need, so that we can actually deliver on the vision that you're bringing to the field. So I just say that just so if there's anyone that's watching, or that, know that everyone that submitted, we're going to make sure we get you exposure. Now, that being said, we're going to hear from more than 20 CEOs of different startups around the world. We're also going to hear from 5 subject matter experts. So you are going to get to see a lot of different things across the world. It's just, in the format that we had, we didn't have enough time to put that in, and also make sure that we got through everything in the time that we said, 5 weeks ago when we said we're going to do this virtually. So with that, let me introduce the first set of entrepreneurs. First place we're going to go to is Nigeria. A couple of years ago, in conjunction with one of the doctors you're going to hear from later in the program, with Dr. Nerlinger, I ended up meeting the gentleman that's standing on the right. His name is Dr. Emmanuel. He's the founder of Inoculate, and it was really touching. He told a story about how some of the most basic immunizations that are accessible to us here in the United States are not accessible in Nigeria. And he actually started a business with a piece of technology that made it even more possible to get these inoculations into the field, because he had a commitment to actually change health outcomes there. Let's hear from him.
Hi, Emmanuel. He is Momo. In 2018, when I served the Pankubun community, I noticed a huge burden of hepatitis B infection amongst pregnant women and adolescents. And some of the reasons for this were that health facilities lack access to hepatitis B vaccines, and used needles and shafts were reused on patients. We also realized that many of the clients who had commenced vaccination services were not able to complete theirs due to busy life work schedules and bureaucracies within the Nigerian healthcare system. At Inoculate, we believe the menace of hepatitis B can be brought to the barest minimum in Nigeria and Africa. That's why we vaccinate people anywhere they are, even in their cars. We've also gone ahead to partner with community pharmacies to increase avenues for vaccination services across board. Please join us in our cause to achieve a hepatitis B-free Nigeria and Africa. Thank you.
Exciting stuff to actually see how they are taking on, hepatitis B and just giving access wherever the individual might be. The main thing about this is, taking, I think people, like 2 years ago when I started talking about Emmanuel and some of the other doctors that I actually got to work with when I was there in Abuja, Nigeria, people didn't really understand the power of having empowering entrepreneurs like himself, entrepreneurs like Dr. Emmanuel. It's really exciting to see how important, well, not just exciting, it's there's like a depth of, we now really get to see how important that is. So with that, thank you, Emmanuel, and love interacting with Emmanuel every week on our Venture Outfitter program. Part of the idea is getting access to all these different entrepreneurs with the relationships and resources that they need. And part of what I'm going to actually mention is with my recent call out on Facebook, part of what we're going to be doing is making sure that you, the viewing audience that might not be one of our entrepreneurs, can get involved with these type of businesses. Let's now hear from one of the entrepreneurs that was part of our Bridge Mexico program. This is Danielle from BioCap.
Hi, I'm Danielle, and I will show you how BioCap is reducing cleaning costs, time, and toxic footprint. Have you ever wondered how many toxic compounds are used in cleaning and maintenance products? This is grease, hard grease. And this is BioCap. A biotech formula inspired by human metabolism that use enzymes to break molecules of grease, carbs, proteins, sugars, achieving a deep cleaning and decontamination of any surface. It doesn't contain any hazardous compounds and makes enzymes work in an enhanced way without collapsing. BioCap isn't corrosive and doesn't affect people, water, environment, and reduces costs by use less time, less stage of cleaning, less water, reduces risks, increased lifetime of equipment, eliminates 99.9% of bacteria, and is truly biodegradable. Currently focused on the food processing companies and oil and gas industries in the United States, we are launching our project in Texas. We are BioCap, and our main goal is reduce the toxic footprint of cleaning products that causes chronic diseases and contamination of water and food. Join us for a less toxic world. Thank you.
Yeah, so join us for a less toxic world. Let's actually frame in what does that mean. So even today in the United States, a lot of the in the food processing plants for the food that you and I eat, most of the time the cleaners that are being used to clean the surfaces of that manufacturing area, of that food processing plant, are actually toxic. And so what ends up happening is the group goes in, they clean up the whatever the mess was, or whatever the piece of manufacturing equipment, and then they have to clean up after that because the cleaners that were used were toxic. What Danielle and his team and the team of scientists behind him have actually discovered is a way to do this. Then, as he demonstrated with his finger, right, we can actually clean this stuff up without using toxic chemicals. And that's really important because it's been shown, even in the United States, that one of the things that happens is, these cleaners go through, but a lot of the cleanup afterwards is not taking care of the toxins that then get into your food. So from the standpoint of biosecurity and food security, this is real exciting stuff. Daniel just opened his office in Texas. He was part of the Innovation Bridge with Austin. And so what's exciting about that is, he's one of the discoveries that we discovered. Now, Daniel's from a little state in Mexico called Hidalgo State. It's one of the smallest states in Mexico out of the 31 states of Mexico. Part of the thing that is exciting about that is this company that I mentioned, our Venture Outfitter program, that is a talent agency. Part of what we want to do is we want to discover talent like Daniel, because this is where, if we can help entrepreneurs like him that have discovered these interesting pieces of science, it's real exciting type of stuff. Let's hear from one other entrepreneur that is from the Mexican Bridge, talking about hospitals and what they're doing with hospitals. This is David Potes from Monterrey, Mexico.
We have all lived the complexities of the healthcare system, having to respond to questions that sometimes we don't have the answer to. Like, if I'm not feeling well, should I seek attention right now? If so, with whom should I go? Where should I go? How much is the cost of the visit? Is there a parking space? All these questions involve part of the patient journey. Now, not understanding the patient journey doesn't only affect patients, it also affects healthcare providers. A patient lost in its patient journey is also a patient loss for a healthcare provider. Now, a hospital can lose to over 400 patients per year. That equals to over $2 million. Now, we at Apollo are working right now with 12 hospitals and over 24,000 users in Mexico, because we empower healthcare providers to attract, serve, and retain patients. What we do is we enable solutions to capitalize healthcare providers' relationship and experience with their patients, powered by the use of our patient relationship management platform that enables healthcare providers to manage and automate interactions and communication with current and potential patients, leading now to better patient experience, increasing retention rates, and the attraction of new patients. Our studies have shown that a 5% increase in retention rates can lead up to a 40% increase in revenue. That is why we're on a mission to build healthcare transformation. The reason we are here is to offer changing healthcare. We want our clients and their patients to live a better healthcare experience. If you're interested in learning more about Apollo, please feel free to contact us, and we hope to talk to you soon. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to me. Best of all.
So what's exciting about this is, David, right on the other side of the border, is already working with 24,000 patients. And this patient relationship management system is actually really engaging and driving the cost of healthcare down there. Now, why is this relevant in the United States? For those of you all that are in the United States watching this, the reason it's relevant is a lot of times innovation. There's a concept that John Seely Brown, the former director of Xerox Parks Labs, calls innovation blowback. Innovation blowback, where innovation actually happens someplace else, but then it blows back into the United States. Why is that important? And why is building bridges so fundamentally important? Well, David Potes and his team at Apollo Labs have actually figured out how to really make that possible. I'm not sure that this type of solution would have been discovered here, because the need, you know, we have so much money sometimes in the United States that we don't solve the problem of cost like you might need to in Mexico. But then the really powerful thing about, you know, a guy like him and what his team has done is then that technology can be brought back here. And then the problems that we obviously have in the US healthcare system, this entrepreneur and his team have solutions for driving that. That's why this is so exciting. So thank you for what you're doing, David. One other entrepreneur we're now going to hear from that was in the Innovation Bridge with Mexico. Let's talk about physical security. Let's have, this is David Rodriguez with 3D Thea.
A few years ago, two men pointed their guns to my head trying to steal my car. I was unharmed and very lucky, but not everybody is. Today, 100 Americans will die from gun violence. 25% of them will be children and teenagers. Is it possible to identify active shooter situations before they happen? Hi, my name is David Rodriguez and I'm the CEO of 3D Thea. The answer is yes. 3D Thea is the next layer of security for video surveillance and a new generation for video analytics. We can identify over 3,000 different guns using your existing IP cams or CCTV. With 3D Thea, you can reduce your operational cost of security and surveillance, and you can shield people, premises, and assets. 3D Thea is privacy and security for humans.
Yeah, real exciting stuff. What David Rodriguez and his team have come up with is, so you know, you walk into a building, there's already cameras everywhere. And usually, in most cases, there's a guard that's watching those screens. Well, what happens if the guard doesn't see on this screen over here? Because, you know, there's 12 screens here, right, that the guard's looking at. What happens if the guard doesn't see that there are guns in this screen? The cool thing about what David and his team have actually done is they actually are watching in with AI, with artificial intelligence, without giving up anyone's personal identification. They're just looking for weapons or some type of violent act that's actually in process. And then what it does is it can marshal all the forces that, you know, the guard that's sitting there that might have missed that or might be, you know, drinking his or her coffee at the time. You know, the AI actually says, hey, we have an issue here. And so interceptions, they can intercept much earlier what's happening before a violent situation really develops. So with that, thank you, David, for taking on personal physical security. Now let's go to, I mentioned that we had several different bridges that we did this last year. We'll talk a little bit more about them in a few slides, but we're going to hear from Italy, Genoa, Italy, and Alessio and his team about what they're doing to use technology to take care of the elderly and give the elderly more freedom.
My name is Alessio Pitanelli and I'm with Teseo, an Italian startup that is trying to solve a very important problem, that is, how do we help our elderly relatives live better their lives? We are a spin-off of the University of Genoa here. We've been funded by two professors in robotics, and just before this whole coronavirus emergency started, we were running a couple of very important commercial pilots with some very interesting facilities here. So do you know that right now around 1/3 of the elderly people in US and Europe live completely alone? And this is a problem because when they do, they have increased risk of chronic disease, falling down, just worsening their lifestyle. Now you can help with Kibi, our first product. Kibi uses all the inexpensive environmental sensor and very easy to deploy ones, and also smartwatch. We collect this data and we can tell you how independent they are, what are the daily tasks they perform, such as eating, resting, taking care of their hygiene. So very actionable data that allows you to provide customized care, and of course, even alert in case of emergency. So yeah, your elderly relatives are never going to be alone anymore. Really hope that you're interested, because that's a huge problem and that's a great time, frankly, to get involved in the whole elder care and silver economy industries. And if you know anyone in this field that wants to know more, maybe it's interested in a pilot, just provide us feedback. We're always open to all these solutions. Just drop me an email. Kevin should have my contacts. That's it. Thank you so much. Bye, guys.
So as Alessio says, my dad, mom, aunt and uncle don't want to go to a facility, don't want to go to a facility. They want to actually be at home as comfortable as long as they possibly can be and have the freedom to be there. In fact, right now, based on what's happening in Seattle, in some ways it actually would be, safer for them. So what is interesting about what Alessio is saying here is, okay, let's let them be at home where they want to be, but let's have some devices that are not invading their privacy, but just kind of keeping an eye on them, so that we know that they're moving and stuff like that, like as an example, so that we know that something, that they're still active and things like that. And they have a set of sensors. Now, like he mentioned, they're deploying in Italy and in Switzerland these sensors into two of the largest groups of facilities. Obviously, because of what's happening in Europe right now with the coronavirus, these two pilots are being put on hold. But part of what we'd like to find here in Texas or here in the United States, or actually it could be anywhere around the world, but is specifically other facilities and care groups that are actually would like to interact with this technology to extend the freedom that our elderly, that our parents, our aunts and uncles have for as long as possible. Real exciting stuff to see. So with that, thank you, Alessio. So now we're going to hear from one of the other entrepreneurs that's doing some stuff of what do you do about invasive species? Let me have the video to explain what's happening. This is John with EQO.
Hi everyone, I'm John. I'm a molecular biologist by trade. I'm mostly worked in oncology, early stage cancer diagnostics and therapeutics. And now we're applying those technologies to the environment. And we're going to be starting with some invasive species. So mostly we're going to be talking about this little guy. This is zebra mussel. He's our beachhead market species. This is a platform technology. We can address other species as well, but he's good low-hanging fruit. So this is what he looks like all grown up. And this is him hanging out with a few thousand of his friends. These guys wreck infrastructure, they wreck ecologies, and they cause about $7 billion worth of damage and work in the US alone every year. Eventually they leave beaches looking like this, and they can cause some pretty serious human health issues with toxic algae blooms and other things as well. And so the current solutions to this issue are labor intensive. It's guys with nets looking underneath microscopes for the larvae, and then they do a basic genetic test, which is error prone, and they have no ability to eradicate them once a full infestation has taken place. Our solutions are based in the best practices that are available for human health. We have an automated collection and preservation system that goes out to the field. We sell this as a service-based platform, and by probing nucleic acids, not just DNA, but RNA as well, we can provide true early detection up to 2 years prior to infestation and the appropriate information needed to mitigate these things effectively. And ultimately, what we're trying to do is create long-term sustainable biodiverse ecosystems. That's really how we can make a great impact on our environment, our source water. Source water is the cornerstone of public health, and that's what we're here to provide is long-term sustainable biodiverse ecosystems. Thank you to TechRanch for having me. Thank you to Lindsay for inviting me. I really appreciate it. I'm happy to chat more about all the things.
So again, what John is saying is these species move into this zebra mussel moves in, like it's come to Austin and it started taking on our lakes and destroying the ecosystem there. And so he's got a very selective way of targeting just those so that the natural biodiversity that should be present is able to be returned to. So thank you, John, for the work you're doing. Now, we're going to hear from one of our entrepreneurs. It's kind of a blast from the past. Those of you that know about TechRanch's program called Venture Forth, Lamarck was actually one of the entrepreneurs from Venture Forth 17. Venture Forth 17, what is that? That's one of our programs that we've been running over the years. We've run it for more than a decade, where we take entrepreneurs through the whole process of launching their ventures. So we've now had, why is Venture Forth number 17 of interest? Well, we've now had more than 45 of those cohorts. Lamarck has now taken the venture to a whole different level. It's real exciting to see. We like to stay involved with our entrepreneurs, not only at the very beginning, then through the whole launch phase, but then as they take their ventures large. We have different businesses and different programs for each one of the stages. It's exciting to see where Lamarck has gone from humble beginnings in Venture Force 17. Let's hear about CareStarter. He'll tell you all about what CareStarter does.
CareStarter helps pediatric-focused organizations like children's hospitals and health plans automate and scale care management. Care management teams are currently getting to less than 1% of their patient interactions, and those same healthcare organizations don't have enough dollars to hire enough case managers to get to every single one. The CareStarter technology platform is the solution to this issue. Our track record in healthcare is helping our partners get to 100% of their patient population while delivering 1,400% more resources to families with a 70% adoption rate. This process brings tremendous economic and operational efficiency and value to our healthcare partners. Our goal is to adapt this same software platform for the U.S. military serving the Exceptional Family Member Program. A successful pilot with CareStarter would bring about three very important outcomes. First, compliance with current federal law. Second, standardization and operational efficiency for EFMP staff, management, as well as data directly to command. And third, and most important, increasing military readiness by delivering a better experience to families that are enrolled in the EFMP program. It is absolutely my honor and privilege, and CareStarter is very excited to partner with AFWorks, the Air Force, and the Pentagon to bring the solution to the military and the families you serve. We look forward to serving with you.
It's really exciting to see where Lamarck has gone. So this has been years ago that he originally took the Tech Range program. Even when he moved to Austin, he actually moved to Austin from the Dallas area. And now to see how they're actually taking care of our military personnel and vets is really, it's great to see. So thank you to Lamarck and the CareStarter team. Now we're going to talk to with another Venture Forth grad. I actually, off the top of my head, realized that I don't remember which one he was in. This is Koym Johnson, who's going to talk about managed health solutions. Koym actually has offices both in Austin and in Spokane. Oh, he just said in the chat session, he was in Venture Forth 37. So thank you, Koym, for being here, and thank you for the work that you're doing. Especially what we'll hear from is how Koym is leveraging technology from the University of Washington to support different issues in the healthcare process, especially around the opioid crisis.
Hi, I'm Koym Johnson, founder and CEO of Managed Health Connections. We're a Spokane, Washington-based provider of digital health services, and we're here to talk to you about how we're applying technology to help some special people affected by the opioid crisis. The opioid epidemic has an unintended target: children born of addicted mothers. In a normal birth, the mother and baby go home in 2 days. NAS infants typically have hospital charges of $30,000 per infant. The incidence is growing and complications are increasing due to polysubstance use. It's time to fix this. Our mobile platform provides training and decision support tools for clinicians and caregivers for the predominant NAS protocols in use in hospitals today. The platform will be adding tools to support pregnant and postpartum women in MAT programs and to provide additional support for caregiver reporting after discharge. We believe we can train and verify clinician skills in as little as 4 hours and provide the increased ability for the parents to care for infants independently and measure the progress of infants affected by NAS. We will provide training courses as base CNE options online, and we will provide customized courses for hospitals that will be customizable and feature competency measurements. Our team includes over 35 years of training and NICU experience, along with addiction experts from the PAIR lab at the Elson Floyd School of Medicine at Washington State University. That's the Program for Excellence in Addiction Research. We have received initial funding from multiple SBIR grants from the National Institute on Drug Abuse and the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism. The device application is capability of being integrated into electronic health records subject to FDA approval. Our training includes a competency measurement option and utilizes video examples to illustrate patient symptoms. I want to show you the example of the difference.
This behavior receives a score of 3.
I'm so sorry. You don't want that hand down. You don't want anything down.
Clearly, this baby is getting great care, but the impact of defining what a truly high-pitched cry is can reduce the hospital stay and improve care by up to 3 days on various, if all the symptoms are measured properly. Again, we have online and mobile tools to improve care for infants. We collect data from user simulations that can be used privately for process improvement and coaching. Our special skill is to customize the programs and have the ability to adapt to different environments and provide updated treatment information for multiple protocols, and we will expand it to multiple substances. We'll launch online CNE courses with a competency option in Q3 of 2020, focused on the FNAST protocol, and in 2021 with the Eat, Sleep, and Console protocol. We will provide post-discharge care support and measurement of infant success in 2021 and pregnancy support in 2022. Our management team includes myself and Maureen Shogun, who has 35 years of NICU experience, and of course our developers and the WSU team, Sterling McPherson, Matt Layton, and Crystal Letterhouse-Smith. Thank you. I look forward to taking your questions or providing you more information at your convenience.
Thank you, Kim. It's obviously very important with the situation of mothers that have had opioid addiction that then are passing certain issues to the children, on birth, if at all possible. What's happening here is, let's train the healthcare providers, the nurses typically, so that they can intercept and actually work with these children much earlier on. And if they actually engage much earlier on, the later healthcare crises can be taken care of. That's what's so exciting about this. Now, there's a couple other things that that I personally got to learn about this process, and part of what we're going to be bringing to more entrepreneurs. Kim has been quite adept at SBIR funding. That stands for Small Business Innovative Research. For those of you all entrepreneurs that are watching and you have a piece of advanced technology, what is this? Why is this important? What's funding? It's funding that comes from the US government for supporting really cutting edge technology. As an example, Kim is taking science, Kim and his team are taking science from University of Washington and turning it into technology, and then taking that technology and turning it into products and bringing it to market. That's really critical. SBIR is a way of getting access to funds typically earlier than any financial investor would give you the time of day. And it's exciting to see what he and his team have done, as well as how they're supporting other people. I'm going to take a really quick, short acknowledgement break and just make sure as well. So I just saw that Maria Stawaz, who was one of our marketing managers for many years, is watching the stream. And I just want to acknowledge you, Maria, for all the hard work you did over the 4 years of bringing these entrepreneurs to market. It's exciting. I'm excited to get you involved in the nonprofit, and I'm glad that you're here watching evidence of your success in what you've done in supporting these entrepreneurs. So thanks for being here. Now we're going to hear from Alex Deep with ClassHook, helping teachers find relevant materials for classroom examples.
Hi, I'm Alexander Deep, co-founder and CEO of ClassHook. At ClassHook, we enable teachers to find and effectively use educational videos from popular TV shows and movies in their lessons. What we found by talking to teachers and through research is that it's really hard and difficult to find engaging media content to use in their classrooms. And so teachers might spend up to an hour just looking for a video for their next lesson. What we've done is create a curated library of over 3,000 videos from your favorite movies and TV shows, such as The Simpsons, Shrek, Teen Titans Go, and Seinfeld. And we've organized them by topic, aligned them by standards, and accompanied them with discussion questions and tools so that teachers can create engaging, active learning experiences for their students. Teachers in over 10,000 schools across the United States and abroad use ClassHook, and the teachers report on average that ClassHook helps them increase engagement by up to 70%.
Well, Alex, thank you. Yeah, education technology, obviously with what's happening with the internet and what's possible, this is really critical for driving down the cost of education while creating more outcomes and more support for our overworked teachers. So thank you, Alex. Now, Matt Johnson is going to tell us about Gunny Systems and what they're doing to save energy in hosting.
Hi, I'm Matt, and in 2018, I've co-founded Gunny Systems Incorporated with John Potter. We design, build, and operate edge data center facilities with a focus on energy efficiency and compute density. Using geothermal cooling, hot exhaust thermal capture, and advanced server and rack cooling solutions, we're able to provide unparalleled density and efficiency in any climate. Edge facilities are critical for emerging workloads and technologies like automated vehicles and the Internet of Things, but they also provide practical solutions for existing workplace conundrums. Edge facilities like the ones we build and operate can lead to better distribution of network and cloud resources. That means an overall better user experience with VPN, virtualized workstations, video conferences, and other technology required for a smooth teleworking experience. As we grow our network of edge facilities, we would love to learn how we can work with other organizations to move compute to the edge. Thanks for watching and have a great day.
So why is this important? With the massive shift that happened this week with all of us working from our homes, it's really critical to actually take this computing power that used computing power that used to be, centralized over here, closer to the end user. And for those of us, it actually makes it better because we're able to interact faster and things like that. But the other thing that really drives why this is so valuable is the cost associated with building all this computing power at the edge, closer to the actual users, is he's driving down the cost of energy, or the energy usage. So it's saving money that way as well. It's both good for the environment and good for the pocketbook. Now we're going to hear from Igor in Russia. Igor was part of our US-Russia Innovation Bridge. And part of what, we'll hear from two entrepreneurs from the Russia Bridge, but right now we'll hear from Igor about how is it that you can engage on consistent, constant testing of your health. Really interesting technology. I got to meet Igor in Koym, Russia, which Koym is in the middle of Siberia, just back in November. And we've been charting his progress about how he's interacting with patients, not just in the doctor's office, but at home, so that we can keep a constant check on what's happening with your health. Let's hear from him.
Have you ever thought about what you can learn about your health conditions long before going to the doctor? My name is Igor and I am the main developer of Videx. We are developing unique medical device BioSticker, which thanks to innovative technologies already existing in the world and developed by us, can analyze your conditions and predict particular diseases. Already now we can say about the presence of ischemic heart diseases, and in the near future we can say everything that the doctor would tell after biomedical test, and we can say it right away. In addition, the device motions your physical activity, full autonomous, protected by IP67. It will be clear even a person of old age. Help yourself and your loved one use solutions from our company.
So what he's talking about is, can you imagine that instead of having to have your loved one have a heart attack, be thrown in the back of an ambulance and make it, or perhaps not, to the hospital when there's a heart attack, why don't we watch the whole thing before any of that happens? Let's intercept it here before there's a heart attack versus, you know, waiting until something terrible happens. Too many times in healthcare, you know, we're dealing with a situation over here where it's really expensive, the person's life's on the line, versus checking much earlier, having a device that's just paying attention to what's happening inside your body, especially with regards to cardiac health. So with that, real excited to get to meet Igor and the work that he's doing. And again, part of the value of these bridges is to discover talent like what Igor and his team are putting together, because they're doing things that you just don't see around the world. It's like, it's very unique and exciting about bringing the brilliance of the middle of Russia and giving him and his team access to the market. And also at the same time, not just building business, but building business that actually is going to save lives. So while we're towards the east, when I was in Latvia, I met two entrepreneurs from a company called Therapy. Therapy actually is for mental health. One of the other entrepreneurs that I got to talk to in Latvia, and the Therapy team is in Poland, by the way, but I actually interacted with them when I was giving a speech in Riga, Latvia last year. I was really compelled to actually hear about the story that Damien, the other co-founder, about how he wanted to see, because of some stuff that had happened in his family, he wanted to actually see engagement much earlier on about dealing with underlying mental health issues and actually supporting people before again, way over here, before there's a crisis that, you know, is too late. Let's hear from Luke, who's the other co-founder.
Hi guys, my name is Luke Strong. I am CEO of Therapify. In Therapify, we build a mobile app which supports mental health treatment process. We support both patient and the specialist in the collaboration. We have made 3 pilots with about 20 patients, which shows that we are able to save up to 60% of time while preparing visit by the specialist. And it's mostly on materials distributions for the patients, and it's about 8 hours monthly for the single specialist. In the same time, we have made 1 in 3 patients more prepared for the next meeting. And right now, in February, we have onboarded 40 more mental health professionals in our service. Currently, we are raising 260K round, pre-seed round. So if you are interested in the mental health industry revolution, don't hesitate to reach me out and join us.
Yes, so the idea here is, let's hope, you know, mental health is another issue that is finally coming to the forefront in the United States as well. In Poland, this team has actually come up with ways of engaging the individual much earlier, and because of that, creating better long-term outcomes and quality of life. It's all about prosperity and actually how we can help people live healthier lives all the way through. All right, well, so we've only gotten to hear from a segment of our entrepreneurs, and there are many more that we wanted to share videos about that we'll be doing over social media. But right now, what we thought we'd do is actually hear from some of the entrepreneurs that are on the front lines. My team is going to promote a handful of them into the, so that you can actually see them right now into the conversation, so we can actually say, hey, what's happening here? And how is it about entrepreneurship and things like that? I'm going to give them a second to go ahead and come on in. I see that David is now here. Let's see, do we have David, and is Svetlana joining us just yet?
She is still trying to come on live, so she'll be here in just a minute.
Sounds good. I tell you what we're doing is we wanted to give you some samplings of another entrepreneur from Russia, from the Tyumen region. Tyumen is a city in a state of Russia in the middle of Siberia. It's pretty much where it's the gateway to the Ola country. In fact, Tyumen is the sister city of Houston in Russia. So between Houston and Tyumen, there's been a bridge that now, not just a political, we're taking it from not just a political bridge, but now a bridge of entrepreneurship. We'll tell you more about that with our social media and coming soon. But as she's coming online, what I'm going to go ahead and do is David and let's see, David and David. I can't see you guys on my screen yet, but go ahead and join me. We'll start with some questions.
Hi, Kevin. Can you hear me?
Yeah, David. David Potas, I hear you fine. David Rodriguez, are you able to join us as well with voice?
Yes, sure. I'm here.
Perfect. Thank you for both of you being here. So both of these guys are actually from our innovation bridge with between Mexico and Austin. I would love to hear a little bit about you. Like both of you answer the question, what inspired you to start your companies? Tell us a little bit more about it. David Potas, why don't we start? Why'd you build the platform that we saw the video about with Apollo Health a little bit ago? Oh, looks like you guys went on mute.
I'm sorry, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
Go right ahead, David.
Okay, thank you. So my story is basically, first of all, we were looking for ways to make healthcare more accessible for patients. And this is something that I live over and over again here in Mexico. And I hear a lot of friends also live in the sense of when sometimes you get a disease or you're not feeling well, you start to question a lot of things. And first of all, if I should go to a doctor, if the doctor's diagnosis is, can I get a second opinion? And there's a lot of myths and paradigms we're trying to break that are in healthcare, and this is part of healthcare all over the world, not only in Mexico. And part of what we're trying to do is try to hit two birds with one stone, in the sense of giving the patients more information about what they can do and what empower the patients in that sense, but also help healthcare providers to not lose patients in the process. And this is one of the problems that we're mainly focusing on and trying to get some sense with healthcare providers to understand that this is something that they should start measuring, because the number is pretty high in the sense of how many patients a medical doctor or a hospital or clinic are losing per year.
Yeah, it makes sense. If we can support that relationship, it creates better healthcare outcomes. It also it gives the patient a better way to engage with the doctor. That's exciting to hear, because especially here in the United States, I want your system for me. I was reading a statistic yesterday that said that 25% of Americans don't have a primary care physician, and part of the issue is just because how difficult it is to keep that relationship in place. So that's wonderful. Thank you for doing that. Now let's hear from David Rodriguez. David, what inspired you? You told us a little bit in the video about the situation of being stopped with two guys with a gun. So we heard about that part. Say a little bit more about what inspired you to become an entrepreneur and drive this technology forward.
Yeah, well, all my life I've been a little, how do you say? I am a doer. So I've leaded several projects, and yes, a few years ago, two men tried to rob my car, to steal my car with guns. This is a very common problem here in Mexico, and it's also a common problem in the US, as long as any kid or any teenager has access to guns at Walmart. So the guns are part of the problem, but what people do with them are the real problem. And once I had this experience, I wanted a way to stop that, because I was blaming myself about if I did something wrong, if I was too, flashy or attracting attention to me, but I didn't. It was not my fault. And with our technology, we can help people in that situations, and prevention is key, and that's why we did 3D TIA.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. It's beautiful to actually use the crisis that you had to go through, and I'm very sorry that happened. But obviously, how important that is for being able to engage in taking something terrible that happened and turn it into a positive outcome, or as positive as possible. In fact, one of the things that I would suggest is if you have the video that you showed me about where you're actively tracking an intruder that has a weapon in his hand through the area, if you have that, throw it out onto throw a link out into the chat, just so that they can do there. Just because it'd be great to actually have people see how this intercepts things. It's really great to see.
I cannot share my screen. Can you help me out with that?
Let's do this. Since Kristin is the host, part of what we'll do is if she can do it in the next little bit, we'll do that. But part of what we can do is post the link, if at all possible, into the chat, and then we'll follow up towards the tail end.
Yeah, that's better. I'm going to share with you in the chat like 2 or 3 links to our videos just to check out our technology, and hopefully you like it. That
sounds great. And we did get a question from Jackie Selby in the chat. Just I want to make sure I immediately follow up with the answer to that question. Mentioned in the chat that Impact Focus Hardware Accelerator and partner funds. Part of what we'll be doing, our program manager, Kristin, is our program manager of the Venture Outfitter. If you registered for the webinar, which I think almost everyone that actually interacted, to get the link, you had to register. She's going to follow up with a link to all the different companies, just so you have that information so you can engage. Obviously, since the chat is open, I believe Kristin is right now posting a lot of the links out there, but we can make sure that there's specifically, especially if you have like a specific thing, send a chat to Kristin and she'll make sure she personally follows up, but everyone on the list will actually get a link to this. The question I wanted, since David, you both were part of the Innovation Bridge, and we have a lot of entrepreneurs as well as prospective ecosystem partners listening into this program today. And just so everyone knows, what do I mean by an ecosystem partner? We're going to hear from our ecosystem partners in Mexico that made this bridge possible. An ecosystem partner is to build a bridge, you have to have a firm base on one side, you have to have a firm base on another side to then have a bridge go across, right? That's the whole idea. The idea with tech ranches, it's not my vision to put a tech ranch everywhere, but to have a partner organization. In the case of the bridge with Mexico, that the federal government of Mexico funded this last year, the whole idea was we partnered with a university, one of the top universities in Mexico called Tec de Monterrey, or it's a technological university, but it's one of the top universities. It's called the MIT of Mexico in many circles. So the idea about this is we built this bridge. Part of what I'd like to ask David and David about is, could you both tell us a little about the value, or was it valuable to actually be a part of the bridge? What'd you get out of the whole process? What's been good about that?
Sure, Kevin, thank you. David, do you mind if I go first?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Thank you. So I think there's a lot of things that well, personally, I and my team have taken advantage of in being part of the Mexican-Austin Bridge. First of all, and I think that's and correct me if I'm mistaken, Kevin, but that's the first objective in the bridge, is to make a soft landing in the U.S. market. And even though we're taking it one step at a time, is something that we're achieving, and we're looking forward to in this year to start our offices in Austin and potentially start building our U.S. entry into the U.S. market. Sorry. And the other thing that has been quite interesting has been the relationship with other entrepreneurs, and specifically with entrepreneurs within the Mexican cohort. You know, just sharing experiences and sharing stories about how we are all of us in the same, in the same boat as entrepreneurship. That just only that helps a lot. And the other thing is something that I don't know if I'm answering one of the questions you're probably gonna do further along, Kevin. Is something very interesting happened this Thursday. I don't know if you want me to talk a little bit about what happened.
Yeah, go ahead. Since you've opened it up, it's perfect to hear about it because it's so timely.
Yeah, it was actually kind of a serendipity, but it was what we do is with the Venture Outfitters program, entrepreneurs from all over the world connect on Thursday, and we have some talks, and Kevin and Kristin invite speakers and that. But this specifically Thursday, it was kind of serendipity because Svetlana from Russia, that she's also in the healthcare industry, and me were on, and Kevin, and we were talking about this COVID-19 pandemic that's been, the issues being all over the world. And it was really interesting, and then all other entrepreneurs started to join, Jorge from Mexico, and we started to share, brainstorm ideas of how we can, global entrepreneurship can start to solve problems that are specifically concerning, the population worldwide. So it was interesting, and it was something that, like I said again, serendipity started this Thursday, and it's something that we've been working on this couple of days, because there's a lot of solutions that, Svetlana has been doing in Russia that we can apply here in Mexico, and we can share data back to Svetlana, and we can start to tackle this global pandemic with entrepreneurship and just a global effort.
That's perfect. In fact, I just got a message that Svetlana is now on. David Rodriguez, we'll come back to you in a second about getting your input about the bridge between Austin and Mexico. But Svetlana, if you could, tell us a little bit about your business, and what inspired you to start it. And then tell us as well about the solution that you have for the COVID-19 problem that's the world's facing.
Yeah, hello, Kevin. Are you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. You sound great.
Yeah, thank you. From why I started my company, it was a personal story. I lost my father when I was 11, and this was very painful and painful still. And this was the start of my internship way, because I need to earn money from the little when I was a little girl. It started my relationships with medicine, and all this way, all my life, I was an entrepreneur, but in other fields. And 3 years ago, I realized that all stars met, and now I need to start a company that solve all my problems, like personal problems and problems in the world about cardiovascular diseases, and started company. So it's created from personal pain.
Say that last little part. You said that it said that it was a personal story that actually opened this all up.
Yeah.
Got it. And so tell us a little bit about the, well, first off, your story was very moving and touching, especially from the standpoint of how, how we as entrepreneurs can use tragedy and terrible things that have happened in our lives to then be the empowering force behind us to actually drive change in the world. So first off, I acknowledge you for that. Secondly, I want to acknowledge you for being an entrepreneur in a country that entrepreneurship used to be illegal 29 years ago. So you're quite a pioneer on what's happening, from the work that you've done. Tell us what is it like to be an entrepreneur in Russia?
Now it's okay, I think, because 10 years ago it was very hard, because the authorities, environment, people around, they blame entrepreneur, that they told that they are crime, something like crime, doing crime. not in entrepreneurship. And yeah, it was hard times. But now it's like another step in our country. We face, and the government very support entrepreneurship here now. But of course, Russia is well like a country with many like personality challenges. Like I think regulation is very extensive and more than we little need. So like for me, you know, entrepreneurship, like it's part of me. So all these challenges is like a part of my game. So I don't like feel that it's very hard. I used to them, but but of course maybe if I sometimes I sit on my sofa and thinking about how entrepreneurs like doing in United States and in Europe, and how I'm doing here in Russia. I think that maybe I just like buy tickets to New York and start doing business there. But then maybe no, I'm just trying here, and then maybe.
Wait, it's interesting. There's an economics writer named Hernando de Soto who actually talks about that life starts in small spaces, and what he was trying to say is that business starts in like these little small areas, right? And then from that, one of the reasons that I think Austin became so focused on entrepreneurship and innovation is, you know, 20 years ago, actually 25 years ago, when I started my first company here in Austin, it was a terrible place to start a company. It was a terrible place to start a company. It was a wonderful place to live, but a terrible place to start a company. And so because of that, one of the things that I think ended up coming out of that was the type of innovation. Like, why is it that Austin's now called the most innovative, actually it's been called the most entrepreneurial city in the world, you know, outstripping Silicon Valley? Why is that? Well, I think the same opportunity is true in the brilliance of what you and also Igor have done in the products that you're building. You're actually, because you've been in this isolated area, there's all sorts of innovation. Now, you're right. Part of our work in the bridge is to build access for entrepreneurs like you to other parts of the world, so that you can bring your products to other parts of the world and, you know, use this really innovative work that you've done there to other parts of the world. So exciting that you've done that. Let's do this. What I'd like to do is, you know, I'd like to hear from either Svetlana or David Rodriguez. What are you getting out of the bridge? Like, what else are you getting out of the bridge? Anything you'd like to say, either one of you?
I can say that our bridge is like very inspired me to work. I explain because it's like spread my conscious. Like I understand now the perfect tools, the perfect steps how to scale my solution to another country. It's not just because we discussed in our bridges meeting about steps, like but we discussing everything, and I realized, my conscience realized that all the world is like here is close, and all we do, we all can do everything in every part of the world. It's like simple. It's like we can do it. So for me, it's like inspired of my soul, like my conscience, for thinking about this, and maybe to relevance my business strategy, like to move to another countries.
That's great. Well, we'll make sure that more of that happens. What I want to do is, I know that just based on the time, actually, since you're staying up, I think it's like after midnight there. Thank you for staying up so late. from Tumen. And thank you to David Potes and David Rodriguez as well. What we'll do is make sure in the chat that and also on the follow-up, we'll make sure that there is exposure to everyone that's listening so that y'all can connect in. I want to just acknowledge all three of you for the hard work that you're doing. It's been an honor to be a part of your path as you've been building your businesses. What we'll do is, I'd love to ask you more questions, but just for the sake of time, since we have such a short period of time, we'll go ahead and move on to the next stage. You know, feel free for anyone that would like to ask questions in the back channel. You should be able to do that in the chat. And we'll go ahead and move to the next stage because I really do want to acknowledge you for what y'all are up to, you know, from the standpoint of taking care of our patients, taking care of situations concerning COVID-19 as Svetlana is doing, taking care of physical security as David Rodriguez is doing. So with that, thank you all for your work. We acknowledge you for the hard work you're putting in and turning crisis into strength. So thank you all. So switching right along, what I'm going to do is I will switch to the ecosystem part of the conversation. We've been talking about these international bridges, and you're starting to see some of the flavor of what a bridge can do. And part of it is we build these bridges so that we can actually, you know, discover this talent and then help the talent. We actually have 4 verbs that we say: discover talent, develop talent, connect talent to opportunity, and then help it scale. So let's do that. Let's see, I'm getting a note that our next attendee, what we can do is we're gonna switch over to one of our other guests while we're here. And before we lose him, because he's actually on the front lines of dealing with the pandemic, Dr. Andrew Nerlinger, who is the founder of the PandemicTech Accelerator. He's also the gentleman that took me and introduced Tech Ranch into Nigeria as an example. That first entrepreneur that we heard from, Dr. Emmanuel, with Inoculate. Andrew and I were in Abuja, Nigeria during the time that we met him, and then, you know, essentially helped Tech Ranch discover this talented doctor entrepreneur named Emmanuel. Now I know this as well, but as an example from what you heard. Dr. Nerlinger started the PandemicTech Accelerator, and part of what I think would be interesting, given that we have a pandemic that's been declared by the World Health Organization, is to hear from him. Andrew, are you on? Let me just say something real quick.
I am. I'm here. If you give me 1 second, I can reload this with the video attached. So if you can give me 1 second, sorry about that.
That sounds good. When, so part of what will, Andrew, just go ahead and let me know, signal to me when you're actually to do that. Let's see, let me go down to, is this the, someone's gonna have to remind me which slide it is. I'm getting notes to say, go to the this slide right here. And we'll go ahead and Andrew, as soon as you're available, let me know, and we'll go ahead and we'll talk through things.
I'm here.
Okay. Yeah, tell us all about, you were saying, how can the technology community get involved to responding to pandemics with infectious diseases like we're facing right now in the world?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's already been clear some of the applications of the technologies that are under development through the Tech Ranch impact bridges. It's been interesting to see how people with existing technologies have been able to maybe rethink them or rework them to be able to apply them to what's going on right now with coronavirus. The interesting thing about this pandemic and pandemics in general, although we haven't experienced one since 2009, is how it really touches on pretty much every segment of society and really can be applied to almost anything as long as you put your mind to it and decide that you want to take that route. And so we've been really excited to see how much interest we've gotten in, you know, both from the tech community here in Austin and then also globally. in really thinking about how people can apply what they're working on to try to help the situation, which is a very good thing for people in general. But it's also good practice, I think, for being prepared for future outbreaks. And if coronavirus comes back again next year, then we'll need to use this stuff again next year. So that's really glad to see. In general, though, I think that up until the last couple months, pandemic infectious disease has been considered mostly the province of governments or NGOs. And I think that one of our goals with PandemicTech was to set out to change that mentality, make people realize that there are opportunities here for technology development. There are opportunities for startup development, entrepreneurship, and application of innovative thinking and innovation-focused thinking to solving this problem. And the corollary to that is the importance of also marshaling private sector support for that, whether it be in the form of more private sector engagement or investment in technologies that are relevant.
Well, and one of the things that the PandemicTech Accelerator, your organization, has done is just recently launched a fellowship. Could you tell us about that fellowship?
Yeah, the fellowship we just launched, it's called the PandemicTech Innovation Fellowship 2020. It's been in the works for several months, and so it was kind of rather coincidental that it applied. That the time frame coincided with the coronavirus outbreak, but we were able to launch it in February. And really make the coronavirus response a point of emphasis. And so we've given priority to projects that are incorporating some relationship with the coronavirus outbreak. So we launched it about a month ago. It's a $100,000 innovation challenge. It'll be a combination of grant funding and equity funding, depending on the projects and the fellows that we pick. The target range is between $2,000 and $20,000 for the fellows that we select. And just as importantly, and speaking to the community aspect of this, the reason we chose to do a fellowship program instead of kind of a grant or an investment program is because our interest is first and foremost in building out our own community. And so we expect and we hope that by making this a fellowship, the people who would be coming into this program would actually be incentivized, and it would be a critical part of their experience to join this network of kind of experts and people who are really trying to attack this pandemic infectious disease problem. And so that's kind of the nature of the fellowship program.
Well, what do you think is the long-term outlook for innovation and private sector engagements in issues like the world's facing right now? What's your thought about that?
Well, I think that this has made it very clear that it's everyone's responsibility. These outbreaks demand a whole of society response that's not always really clear when you're looking at something like the Ebola outbreak in the Congo that's been kind of wrapping up actually recently, or even in 2016 with the Ebola outbreak, the Zika outbreak. It scared people, but the reality was it wasn't clear that it was everyone's responsibility to deal with. But when you have a situation like this, it is pretty clear it is pretty clear that it's everyone's responsibility. So I think that the private sector is going to get more involved. You already see this in the testing kits and the development of everything from the reagents needed for testing to some of the molecular techniques. These are all really well entrenched areas the private sector is already established. What I'd like to see happen from this is a greater recognition of the need for either private investors or corporate social responsibility arms and everywhere in between to try to make investments in people who are the local innovators solving these challenges in their local communities, and realize that this is not just big biotech, but we need to support early stage companies, early stage entrepreneurs and innovators that are trying to tackle these problems in their local communities, and ensure that there's a financial sustainability component into what's typically, again, been considered a grant focused or nonprofit focused area.
Yeah, it's interesting that myself, from my background of choosing the entrepreneurial path, it's interesting how fast entrepreneurs can organize and take action around that. So it's exciting to see, not just exciting, I don't even know what the right word is right now, given what the world's facing. So I'd like to acknowledge you for your work. I know that it's been tireless for you and the entrepreneurs that you're working with. As well as the World Health Organization. I was hoping to get to participate with some of the, Andrew actually quite literally had, the director of World Health Organization Africa was going to come give speeches during South by Southwest, and also have a biosecurity expert from Mexico's top biosecurity expert come as well. So thank you for your tireless work, especially right now on what we're all facing. What's the best way for individuals to engage with you? I noticed that there's a couple of links that you're sharing onto the chat channel, but is there any specific way that whether they're investors or entrepreneurs that you'd like to see follow up?
Yeah, I think that the most obvious way is to, if there's any interest in applying for the fellowship, we're really trying to attract a diversity of both geographical regions and expertise. This is not just, in fact, the opposite is true. This is not meant to be for only infectious disease people. This is really meant to spark kind of a really diverse community of interest. And so if there's even any questions about that, please do. There's instructions on how to get in touch with us on those 2 links, and Kevin can share the contact information. Please do, I'll type the email address in here to get in touch with us. The fellowship, applying for it or asking questions about it to see if it's a good fit is always welcome. But then again, we're also seeking people to serve as advisors and mentors as well for these projects. And so really, if there's any interest or any questions, just send an email and let me know what you're interested in. And I suspect if you're interested enough that we can find some way for you to get involved in this work.
That sounds great. Well, and with that, TechRanch is so excited to be a collaborator with PandemicTech, and I've really enjoyed getting to work with you, Andrew, through the work you're doing and the vision that it's extremely clear that you brought to the world with creating this type of accelerator. So we look forward to long-term partnership and collaboration with you. And thank you for the frontline work that you've been doing with regards to engaging entrepreneurs like this.
We appreciate it. In fact, it was, I know, Kevin, you mentioned the Nigeria hackathon that we did, and it was very exciting that our first equity investment we made in January was in one of the companies that we met at the hackathon. So it was very exciting, a Nigerian firm that does micro insurance for infectious diseases. So that was an exciting development. And of course, we still have a project ongoing in Ethiopia with an Australian partner that Kevin set us up with. So that was we really appreciate that.
Yeah, part of what, before we let Andrew go, the thing that he's speaking about is one of my favorite examples of the power of impact innovation is we have Australian entrepreneurs taking on a disease called leishmaniasis in Ethiopia. And now this is, these are connections in Ethiopia that were Andrew's, and connections from my network with our partner organization called the New Ventures Institute in Adelaide, Australia. The whole idea is in Adelaide, at the New Ventures Institute, which is part of Flinders University, which is a top 2% research university in the world, they had this one capability that, when applied in a very interesting way, was helping drive down the cost of a series of tests in Ethiopia. And so we'll keep on following up about that. I noticed that there's already a lot of interaction and traffic about this. In the next Venture Outfitter meeting, which a lot of the entrepreneurs that are on right now that we've heard of they've heard from are in our Venture Outfitter program. So part of what we'll do, since several of you have mentioned interest in the fellowship, part of what we're going to do is actually help you, package up and put together the right pieces of what you're doing so that it's ready for Andrew. I was talking to him about that yesterday when I was mentioning Svetlana's business and what she's up to. And as we break out into the next couple of slides, I'll actually talk a little bit more about the emergence of the conversation that happened that I think is ready-made. Like Andrew said, it's not just the, infectious disease tests, but there's a whole value chain of need that we can engage around. With that, let me switch to, I'm going to talk about that. And Andrew, I know that that you mentioned that you only had a short period of time. If you can't stay on with us, please do. I totally understand with the pressing issues that you're up against, that you can step away at any point, because we need you on the front lines. So one of the things that we're referring to is on this last Thursday, we heard from David Potes, the gentleman in the lower right, speaking with Svetlana. Svetlana said, I have this interesting technology that can be what essentially is electronic stethoscope. And by listening into the lungs, we have a piece of AI, artificial intelligence, that can tell based on the sounds what's the underlying condition that might be up against. And they've now run about 20 different trials as an example, and they've been able to actually select for COVID, the COVID-19 condition. But Svetlana is saying, hey, before we roll this out to the next level, we actually need to get more audio samples, which is what we heard from David earlier about David saying, well, I'm connected to these 12 private hospitals in Mexico. Mexico obviously is up against this threat as well. And, David Potes is in the process, David Potes from Apollo Health is in the process of gaining access to these audio samples for Svetlana's company. And then the conversation that emerged was everything from one of our entrepreneurs is a gentleman by the name of Jorge Lopez, who has an architectural technology company. He said, hey, one of the ways of dealing with the virus is you actually can set up your HVAC, your AC system in a hotel or in a building and have it force the force air in a certain way that actually drives down the issue. Underlying issue, as an example, is when the humidity is between 40 to 60% in a building, the ability for the virus to take hold goes way down. We'll actually hear from him in some of the follow-up about what's happening. Another one of the companies, a company from the Innovation Bridge in Mexico called Monitor, a company that's out of Guanajuato State, was on the program, and Francisco said, hey, I have monitors that, you can just stick this monitor inside this low-cost sensor inside of your building, and it'll tell you what your humidity is. So this is another part of what we call the value chain. We recognize that we can organize the HVAC system in a certain way. We can now monitor using this monitor company. Then we have Svetlana's company that can actually do the type of interaction that actually says, well, does this person have or not have the condition through the electronic stethoscope? Then we have David Potes' company that actually is doing the patient relationship management. This is the whole power of what I see. As an innovator, I see this whole way to just totally reorganize very quickly around this sort of stuff. This came out of this conversation. It's really exciting to see that happening. We see this happening all the time. It's just this example is such a powerful example about how insight from around the world is really powerful to have. What I'd like to do is we have a few other slides that I want to actually hear from. I asked Alessio to give us an update since Italy is in lockdown right now. I said, Alessio, tell us a little bit about what is happening in Italy.
Hello, everyone. I'm Alessio Pidanelli. I'm with Teseo. That's an Italian startup that was in Austin, Texas, a tech ranch in particular, this summer, and we're still in the venture fit program. So Kevin Koym asked me, can you please record a short video about what's going on in Italy with the coronavirus emergency? I say, sure, no big deal. So the situation is serious, but it's not dramatic, I would say. I don't know what you heard from the news, but yeah, there have been a lot of infected people, there have been some deaths, and that's definitely awful, but in general, life's going on more or less as usual. We have some very strict rules right now that seems to work, but they're not too bad. We're just working remotely wherever we can, and going out to go to the grocery store, to the pharmacy, or to work if you really need to, and avoiding crowded spaces. So apart from that, it's just the usual. We are going on with Teseo, everyone is going on with their life. These sort of measures may seem very harsh, but they're necessary, and once they are in action, just a matter of time and patience before the problem solves. So, yeah.
So what we'll do is we'll keep an eye on that with our entrepreneurs that came from the Italian Bridge. We'll make sure we stay in contact with them, and through the Venture Outfitter program, they are participating in that. I mentioned very briefly about how you can use the AC system in a building. We'll hear just a little bit from Jorge Lopez, one of our other entrepreneurs from the Mexican Bridge, about it.
HVAC to create forced natural ventilations in hotels. COVID-19, fight back with building science. Jorge Lopez. EOSIS Consulting Inc. is an international and Texas-based building energy efficiency consulting firm specialized in health and productivity in workspace, solar passive design, and energy modeling with 14 years of experience and 100+ lead and sustainability registered projects. Hotels can be adapted to be safe places to quarantine or treat COVID-19 detected cases by making small adaptations to the HVAC system into a forced natural ventilation. We tried this in 9 stories high building, and we know that the system is working. There will be need for isolation space or
Whoops, I didn't mean to cut that off so quickly. I wanted to make sure, and I clicked a little bit too fast. What we'll do is we'll make sure that that video about the details in Jorge's company are available there, as well as I noticed that one of our other entrepreneurs, Carlos Bernal, is available to us. Since this is so applicable, I'm hopping over some of the other slides just on the fly, and since it's such a big issue, if we can go ahead and promote Carlos, we'll wrap him in. What I want to do is I'd like to hear from our business partners or our partners at Tech de Monterrey about this. And as I'm doing that, we'll bring Carlos involved. Let's hear from Antonio Rios, who is my counterpart at Tech de Monterrey. Antonio, or I should say, Dr. Antonio Rios, is in charge of entrepreneurship in all of northern Mexico. He's originally from Chihuahua. He lives in Monterrey, but he is the gentleman that has actually been driving most of the entrepreneurship in that area. Let's hear a little bit about what he has to say about the Innovation Bridge.
Hi, I'm Antonio Rios, Director of the Entrepreneurship Institute Northern Region at Tech de Monterrey. Among the programs that we have been involved in the last 3 years, the Innovation Bridge program is one of the most relevant, taking advantage of the entrepreneur, talents, and tech range capabilities. A year ago, we had the opportunity to develop 10 startups from Mexico, sending them to the Tech Range Acceleration program. And we had a very good results in terms of funding, mentoring, and connection with the American ecosystems. These startups traveled to Austin to follow the acceleration program with mentors, presentation to investors, improvement of the value proposition, and continued communication with the Austin ecosystem in Texas. All this with the Tech Range support. During the last 3 years, we have been working along with the Tech Range to build an innovation bridge where the government of both countries support the development, entrepreneur talents, and strengthen the entrepreneurship ecosystem of the southern region of the United States and north of Mexico. I'm excited about the possibility of collaborating both personally and as a part of the institution in this program. That will be part of the program that may be extended to South America by connecting with the agreement of Mexico, United States, and Canada, under which we can, as a team, to take advantage and benefit both nations.
So that was Antonio talking a lot about what had happened. And obviously, our original plan for today was to have a celebration of the USMCA. That is the replacement for NAFTA, the agreement between the United States, Canada, and Mexico. And as a Texan, one of the things that I can tell you is Texas's #1 trading partner is Mexico, and Mexico's #1 trading partner is Texas. During the course of the coronavirus crisis, Mexico actually started becoming a bigger trading partner of the United States than China did. They are our neighbors, and it's been, as a Texan, I've always known this because my first dollars earned for my first startup were in Mexico. And so this bridge totally makes sense, not just on entrepreneurs coming here, but also for American entrepreneurs like myself, or I should say Texan entrepreneurs like myself, to have access to other markets. My first customer was a bank, for my first customer, for my first startup 25 years ago, was a bank in Guadalajara, Mexico. All right, so we have Carlos on. Carlos, what I would like to have you tell us about from your home in Chihuahua, Mexico. Tell us a little about what you have. Just give us a taste of what you're working on concerning the COVID crisis right now.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. You're on.
I was having a few issues with my microphone, but if you all can hear me, that's fine. Can you? I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question? As I said, I was having issues with my.
Yeah, no problem at all. You were telling me that that you have a solution that you're pulling in for COVID, and you can talk a little bit about the general platform technology you have, as well as what's the implication for dealing with medical issues into the future.
Oh yeah. We do have a technology that measures different things in urine, including glucose, ketones, proteins. We're working right now with a protein that it's an indicator that we are experiencing a heart attack. It's a protein that is called myoglobin. We're conducting tests with that protein right now, and we are working directly with the hospital in that regards. Also, I was just contacted with by one of my suppliers from China, and they're developing test cartridges for coronavirus. Not sure exactly if we're gonna start working with them in that sense, because it's a very new test. But we're talking with them. We're looking at the numbers that they're getting and the tests that they're running right now. That's a possibility that we can use our device to measure those cartridges, and to have that connected with your phone, and to have that with access to hospitals and things like that.
Got it. So what's the implication of the platform technology that you have? Like, what's the big deal? Like, give it, back to the heart example. Why does it matter?
Well, it matters. Heart attack is the main cause of death, not only in Mexico, but also in the United States. 1 in 4 people die of heart attacks. In this case, we're trying to early detect myocardial infarctions, which is when one of your arteries gets clogged. When your heart muscle starts to die, that we can measure that protein in your urine. Well, actually, we can measure 2 proteins. One is myoglobin, the other one is troponin. But the interesting thing here is, like, right now, they don't even look at myoglobin at hospitals, because by the time you get to the hospital, you almost got rid of all of it through your urine, because people get to the hospital after 10 hours of your heart attack started, or 6 hours or 7 hours. So they go and look for troponin instead. But in our case, we can detect from your home that you're having a heart attack on the first 40 minutes or an hour or so. We're doing that at the hospital right now, and actually the doctors we're working with, they have even mentioned that in 2 of the cases that we detected myoglobin in the patients, they said, you know what, if it wasn't because we knew that it was myoglobin in their urine, I would have let this guy go home, because they didn't detect troponin, because it was too early. It was an hour after attack had started. So that's a good thing for us. And also, we're trying to move this away from the hospital and take into your house.
Yeah, it's really interesting from what Carlos has told me in a previous interaction. So the idea is that heart attacks a lot of times happen over 8 hours. Now, what we see on TV and stuff like that is, the traumatic event as everything is crumbling here. But if you can detect that within the first hour or 2 over an 8-hour stretch, like he's saying, the first enzyme shows up here, then the second or the second biomarker shows up here. Well, you know, in that case, we can capture that first. The individual can find out, hey, you know, maybe I do have something going on, so that healthcare interactions can happen up here. You know, the whole notion of first aid is you want to get involved as quickly as possible in the underlying condition. Well, I tell you what, with that, Carlos, what's the best way, or what do you need right now to actually move things forward? What, if you were to make a request to the audience right now, what would be helpful?
Well, for us, our next step, it's we need to keep on testing. Right now, we're testing directly with patients. Everything is moving a little bit slower thanks to coronavirus right now, especially me getting different tests from different suppliers in China or even in the United States. If any of you know somebody that is a cardiologist that would like to work with us a little bit, I don't know if we can start testing in the US right now. We probably can if we're working with a hospital, but that's our goal right now. We're trying to do as many tests as we can. We are working with Google platform, trying to get, there's a way in which we can program our application on your phone. So Google will take you to the closest, not the closest hospital, but the one that is most prepared to receive you, because not all hospitals are ready to take care of a heart attack. For example, in Mexico, Red Cross, the vast majority of people, they go to Red Cross first, but there's no way that they can help them. I mean, they're gonna send it to other hospital, and with that, you already lost 2 hours. So we're working on a program with our application to send the patient to the best hospital, the closest and best hospital.
Got it. Well, with that, we'll make sure that that in social media and in our follow-up messages that you're included as well. I acknowledge you for all the work you're doing. It's great to see what you're doing both in Chihuahua and around the world. Take care of our hearts, take care of our lungs as well with regards to COVID-19. And thank you for the work you're doing, and look forward to seeing you on the next Venture Outfitter call.
Thank you.
So, cool. Well, so with that, you know, that was Carlos again was from the Bridge Mexico Innovation Bridge. I know that that we're coming up on the time frame that we said that we're going to keep you only for a couple hours. There is a number of videos that we'd like to share with you about what we're doing in the Bridge Mexico, also concerning the bridge that happened with Italy. Some of the work that our company Green Hug is doing with sustainability, things like that, as well as on the front lines and working with entrepreneurs in Palestine, in Ramallah, Palestine. We have a number of interviews that one of the things I love doing is hearing the stories of entrepreneurs. This is Baker from Bridge Palestine. Part of what we'll be doing is, this was initially a very early stage interaction, because a lot of times what we're wanting to do is to create engagement around entrepreneurship that can support also different people through that. So we'll hear more about this. We'll follow up with you in the case of using just social media to follow up with some of the videos about Bridge Palestine, as well as Egypt. I want to hear about this one company about reuse that we discovered as part of the Egypt project. This was a City of Austin project, so it wasn't just Tech Ranch, but City of Austin in Egypt. I'd like to hear from her. This is Yara. Hey, it's Kevin. I'm here in Cairo with Yara from Upfuse. Now, Yara we just announced that she's the winner of the ATX Egypt Bridge, the whole program that we're here for. We selected out of the delegation from Egypt one of the winners based on what she's up to and what she's working on. So, Yara, tell us about your company. What does your company do?
Upfuse produces bags and luggage made from upcycled plastic bags. And we do this in collaboration with local NGOs here in Cairo, supporting women to have stable income while raising awareness, environmental awareness about plastic bags.
Got it. How'd you get involved in this? Like, how is it that you did this work?
This was my bachelor project 7 years ago, me and my partner, and then we decided that we want to make it as a big business. It was a bit hard and tricky in the beginning, but then it went well.
Got it. So you're going to have a bunch of people that hear this back in Austin, Texas, and other parts of the world. Is there any kind of request that you'd like to make to the group about stuff that would help you propel the business forward?
I'm very much looking forward to meeting new people in Austin, because when I went there at the very beginning, I felt that it's a market for UpFuse. So I'm very looking forward to meeting potential buyers and retail owners, retail store owners, because I would love to have the products in this lovely city.
That sounds great. And so how do people get a hold of you? Like, how would they follow up after this?
Definitely, first of all, anyone can check the website. It's upfuse.com, up and then a dash and then FUSE. My email is yara@upfuse.com.
We'll make sure sorry for the cut on that. We'll make sure that we get you that email address. Yara has a really, like what she's saying is essentially they're recycling, or so part of the whole circular economy. That is, how can we just, instead of just building products that we then throw away and have in some, dump someplace, let's take those products and let's recycle them all the way through the system. And some of the bags, she didn't have one of them with her in the video, but so, we'll make sure that we actually have that. I was really proud of the city of Austin, not just the bridges that Tech Ranch is building, but the city recognizing the possibilities of creating more connective tissue. In economic development in the past, the whole idea is you create as much density as you possibly can. But the problem with that is entrepreneurship's lighting up around the world. Our work at Tech Ranch and with IAC and with the partnerships and the collaborators we're building is to create more connective tissue so we can discover talent like this and open up markets for entrepreneurs like Yara so that her products can not only be sold obviously in Egypt, but sold around the world. And a lot of people actually say, hey, what about the United States? So part of what I want you to hear about is, as an American, and given that entrepreneurship in the United States is actually on a downward trend, most people don't know this, but the numbers say that although there are groups that have been historically not recognized as entrepreneurs, that are going up, but entrepreneurship by and large in the United States is going down. So part of what we've started turning our attention at Tech Ranch to is how can we engage with other partners in the US? And what I'd like to say is part of what we'd like to do is make sure that other states, cities in the US that would like to engage with us, these same bridges that we're building around the world, we really want to do at home as well, at home here in the United States. And part of what we're doing in this case of Oklahoma City is opening up international opportunities, not just around the city of Austin, but also in Oklahoma City. Let's hear from Jarrett Martin at Starspace 46.
I'm a startup founder based in Oklahoma City. A few years ago, I got together with a group of individuals and we started brainstorming on what we could do to improve the startup ecosystem right here in Oklahoma. We started a company called Starspace 46. We organized the tech community and quickly became known as a destination for startups. We're now the largest co-working space in the state of Oklahoma. Right around the time that we launched, we met Kevin Koym, and we started asking the question of what makes Austin and Oklahoma different. Well, it turns out that Austin is about 2 decades ahead of us, and the only difference was a group of individuals started dreaming and building the connectors to really build the renaissance of what happened in Austin. So we got a team together of local business, city, and state leaders, and we started dreaming of what Oklahoma could be in the future. Fast forward a few years, and Oklahoma City has seen that similar renaissance, and it's become an ideal place to launch a new business. We're seeing corporate innovation teams get on board, and city and state leadership, they remain committed to building the Oklahoma entrepreneurial ecosystem. I'm really glad that I met Kevin Koym and the Tech Ranch team, and we look forward to building global bridges and Starspace 46's role in that process.
Thank you, Jarrett. The idea here again is, Jarrett said it's been that we're about that Austin's about 20 years ahead of Oklahoma City. Well, Austin had to build up over those 20 years before the age of the internet. Now, I've personally been using the internet since 1988, so I was a little bit ahead of a lot of people. But truth be told, the idea is in the age of the internet, where we can build connective tissue versus building just density. Austin is the most, has more entrepreneurs per capita than anywhere else in the United States. So the idea about is instead of just building density, part of what we can do in helping cities like Oklahoma City is creating connective tissue. Oklahoma City today does not have the level of mentorship for entrepreneurs that say Austin does. I can tell you 20 years ago, when I was an entrepreneur here, you couldn't find mentors here as well. So part of the value of connective tissue in these different locations is we have our set of entrepreneurs, our set of mentors. Some of our entrepreneurs, as an example, recently, David Potes from our Innovation Bridge of Mexico was a part of the conversation that we had in the bridge with Russia. And part of what we're doing is we recognize that we can take this capability and extend it across bridges around the world, so that it's almost like the martial art that I practice. I practice Aikido. You really want to learn entrepreneurship from other entrepreneurs. There's nothing like battle-hardened other entrepreneurs, or sometimes battle-scar entrepreneurs that have scar tissue to donate to other entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship's not something you can read about and really get it. There's concepts, there's business concepts that are valuable to learn about, but entrepreneurship is not just about business. It's also about the internal drive to move forward. It's also about, having a group of people who understand how to pick you up when you've fallen. So the main thing about this is just know that that's part of the overall idea of what we want to make sure that we're extending to other ecosystems. On our website, you'll see that we have programs for entrepreneurs, like you've heard about the Venture Outfitter program. You've heard about the Pioneer program today. You've heard about some of our people that went through the Venture Forth program. Those programs are available. And even if you're working from a home office somewhere else in the world where you have internet, you can be a part of our Venture Outfitter program today. And even under quarantine conditions, that program is accessible to you. So part of what we'll do is we'll continue to build these relationships. And like I said, a bridge requires a firm base on one side, a firm base on the other side, so we can build a bridge. Or if you're an individual entrepreneur, get involved in one of our entrepreneurship programs. Help us discover in your community the right people to be involved in the entrepreneurship ecosystem conversation, and we'll get engaged. We also want to bring corporations into this. Most of my personal background on innovation was, as a startup building really large systems for corporations. A good example, the first $2 billion worth of computers sold at Dell.com were sold on software that I built in my living room when I was an entrepreneur with that first company that I started. The whole power is a lot of times corporations don't want to take the risk that an entrepreneur will sign up with for every day of the week. That is, the corporation is typically going little by little by little, but whereas part of what we see as possible is helping the entrepreneurial organization, the startup, partner up with corporations and do a lot of the innovation work. As Kristin mentioned at the very beginning of our program, that's part of what my background is. And then finally, investors. If you are an investor or know of investors that want to get involved in impact innovation companies, please do let us know, because we're actively soliciting and building those relationships and look forward to doing that all the way through. Okay, so I tell you what we're going to do now is I want to go back to the team, and we had a little bit of a discussion with the Tech Ranch team planned to just say, hey, this is kind of let's reflect as a team. We actually have a microbiologist on our team, our program director for the Venture Outfitter program. Kristin Ginter is one of our, she's our program director. She also happens to be ready placed for this pandemic issue that's coming up, and that she knows all the different issues about all the different parts of that. So it was really great to actually be able to tap into her background because of what she did before Tech Ranch and what she did before being program manager for the Venture Outfitter. As well as Lindsay Powell is going to be joining us. He's joined us from Inco, which is another impact-focused accelerator before Tech Ranch. And then before that, he spent 30 years at 3M in channel management, working with 3M products and getting them out into the world. And so has a very interesting perspective as well concerning all the safety products that 3M is rolling out. And then Cindy Brio was actually the person who brought a lot of the production. She's been kind of our production manager behind the scenes to pull together this program. So with that, let me step back and just say, hey, what do you think about everyone online has actually heard from me, but what would you like to say about this whole process and what you see emerging around Tech Ranch and the entrepreneurs that we're working with?
Can I have the first go? This is Lindsay here. What a show. What a great inspirational show this is. It gives me great hope in the face of so much bad news that humanity really has great people doing great things. I noticed some things I just wanted to share with you. What I noticed was passion. It doesn't matter that most of these people are in far off places. They all share the common human drive of passion. The one thing that surprised me, nobody mentioned making a profit or making money. A lot of these people are doing stuff because they're addressing human needs, because it's the right thing to do. And I find that very inspiring. I also heard examples of people taking novel approaches. They're transferring and replicating what they know. For example, John Higley in cancer research and moving that into other areas, and so many other examples of that, what we heard. We heard people taking risks, personal risks in actually putting their life on hold to get these things done. And I think that's what entrepreneurs are, in essence. They're people that take risks and do those things, which a great many of us that have been used to working for a salary, that's a whole different world there. I also see that these people are prepared to pivot in the face of risk. And you can imagine that COVID-19 is a dynamic situation. There are going to be people working in labs on one particular direction of research, only to find that it comes to a blind end. The entrepreneurs will just pivot. They'll use that failure and they'll use what they've learned and they'll put it somewhere else. So those are kind of the things I picked up from this magnificent display of entrepreneurship.
Thank you, Lindsay. Kristin, how about you? You get to be on the front lines day by day with our entrepreneurs. And with your background especially, tell us, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's been an interesting atmosphere. I know we briefly talked about our venture outfitter call on Thursday, and it was really interesting. I know David Potes said the word serendipitous, and I think that was really, that's a really accurate term about what happens around the Tech Ranch team, but especially around key issues that are going on in the world. We happened to have a time change recently, so it was funny. The picture that we showed earlier was just me and Kevin and Svetlana and David. And what emerged out of that conversation was actually this brain trust of entrepreneurs, where we have 10 entrepreneurs that can, have different areas that they work in that they can tool to help combat the COVID-19 pandemic that we're facing right now. And we all know that that's, it's becoming more serious. The interesting thing is we started kind of documenting all the different areas that our entrepreneurs can help in that. And just in the few days since Thursday, on Thursday, I looked at the numbers, and we had globally 114,000 cases confirmed and over 4,200 deaths. And then I looked at the numbers today, and we're already up to 137,000 cases and over 5,000 deaths. So, it is a rapidly emerging situation, and it's really an honor to work with entrepreneurs through Venture Outfitter that are on the front line of these issues, and really we're using our network to actually change the world for the better. And it's really exciting to be a part of that and to use my knowledge to help push that along. Sometimes it's in translation, and sometimes it's actually just in the mechanics of communicating with our network and stuff like that. But it's been really interesting and cool to see that emerging. I don't mean cool about the situation, but just it's nice to see our network coming together to make change even in difficult times.
Yeah, and I have to echo that whole idea about serendipity. It's not just been about COVID-19. As an example, just a few months ago, there was a bunch of things that happened among the entrepreneurs on how we can actually deal with some of the immigration crisis. Whether you're on one side of the issue or another side of the issue, the truth is there's a lot of suffering happening there, and some of the situations have been real expensive. And again, a lot of our entrepreneurs in certain segments were able to say, hey, we can take this on, and they're already doing it. And part of what we do is just, through the program that Kristin runs, driving the change, driving change just by supporting the entrepreneurs. Now, at the most basic level, it's about like just being the other person to, the shoulder to lean on, all the way up to, in the case of BioCab, introducing him to the right investors and getting that company ready to go to a whole different level, because I, for one, don't want to have toxins in my food sources, as well as, given the need for cleaners like sanitizers, especially with the virus that we're facing, having access to that sort of stuff as well is important. The third person I'd like to hear from the team, Cindy Brio just joined the team as the acting executive director of the nonprofit behind this bridging programs called the Inter-American Education Consortium. We call it Venture Access for short, and the whole idea behind Venture Access is giving access to these entrepreneurial support programs through a nonprofit, since there are funds that go through nonprofits that then enable this type of work, as well as to take on pernicious issues that underserved groups historically have faced, whether in the United States or somewhere place else in the world. Cindy, what's your perspective on this, as well as you're stepping into the role of the director position at IAC?
Well, I can tell you first that I'm very grateful to be a part of this call. I'm super excited to be hearing all of the great news that the entrepreneurs are sharing. It is incredibly inspiring for me, and being the new kid on the block, I'm very excited to see what our programs will be able to do together. And I did also want to take an extra quick moment to shout out to Kristin, because she really pulled this all together with the technology. I'm just amazed and incredibly just humbled, really, by being a part of this all. So I'm excited to see what I will be able to bring to the nonprofit, and all the many things that I'll be able to learn, and how I'll get to know all of you entrepreneurs in different ways, and how we can work together. So thank you for this opportunity, Kevin.
Yeah, well, no, great. It's great to have you on the team, Cindy. And, one of the things too that we were reflecting on with my team is, and one of the issues that Cindy's going to be taking on. So in our numbers of entrepreneurs, actually 1 out of 3 of the entrepreneurs that we work with, 1 out of every 3 is a woman. But for whatever reason, we discovered this week, as we're trying to pull all the different videos together and stuff like that, that we didn't have as many submissions on featuring the female entrepreneurs from around the world. So part of what Cindy and her team in the nonprofit are going to be taking on is getting access to more women entrepreneurs. If you go to ventureaccess.ngo, which is the website for this, you'll actually see that a number of the entrepreneurs that are listed there are women. Crystal Victoria, who's taking on creating entrepreneurship for underserved groups that typically don't get to go to college and don't a lot of times have access to jobs straight out of school. Annie Canosa, who teaches, has a very innovative way of teaching language, especially Spanish, in that she has a startup called Baby Talk Spanish. One of the cool things about that is about how she's able to help caregivers, moms typically, teach their children a second language while they're still in diapers. And then another one is Robin Herkowitz, who runs the Health Start Foundation. You can read about her as well on the website. What her company does, her nonprofit, that she took advantage of the entrepreneurial programs around Tech Ranch. What her nonprofit does is it has a platform for teaching kids at an early stage in a game format about healthy eating habits. And, you know, again, all of them are impact innovation companies. Real excited about that. Cindy, is there any reflections that you have on how we can get more women entrepreneurs that are doing this type of work? Because I find that women entrepreneurs get impact innovation faster than their male counterparts. Any reflections about what you'd like to see in your leadership role on driving more access like this?
I think what I'd like to see, honestly, is that social network component where if you are aware of somebody out there that is doing something amazing, number one, encourage them, and then also refer them to the program. I would love to create opportunities for women all around us. And so obviously, you know, we have that need here locally, but also we're looking at those opportunities internationally as well. And I think the biggest thing is that, you know, we've got these women all around us that are just serving their hearts out, and they might not realize how valuable their skills are. So I think our biggest tool is to really help to empower each other. So when you see those opportunities, lift the women up around you and encourage them to chase their dreams, honestly. That's the biggest thing that I see as a motivator in my life and in those women around us. So I'd encourage you guys to do the same, please. Excellent.
In fact, on the website, there is a, for underserved groups or historically underserved groups, which include minorities, as well as we've had older entrepreneurs that kind of get ignored by the tech bro culture of startups, as well as there are a number of veterans. I was interacting with the commanding officer of Fort Hood a couple of years ago, and he's like, Kevin, I need you to get my vets some jobs. And I said, you know what? Out of every 10 vets that are walking out of Fort Hood from the US Army, let's have one of the 10 become entrepreneurs, because he or she will then go start the companies that that the other 9 can go work for. And so on the VentureAccess.ngo website, you'll see one of our vets, a guy by the name of Chris Nielsen, who is a Navy vet, a Navy corpsman that is a vet that has started Electric Cab of Austin. You know, he didn't have access to entrepreneurship, came from very humble background as well. You know, gave his service as a Navy corpsman, saw some conflict in what he did, stepped out of the military and said, hey, I got all these skills, but how does this fit into what the world of business needs? Ended up starting the largest, he has the largest fleet of electric vehicles in the United States outside of the US government. And what he's doing is solving the last mile problem. Again, really cool thing, because, you know, part of what we need to do is put, especially with the traffic we have in Austin, we need to minimize the footprints of having a car. And so he's solving that. He's solving what's called the last mile of driving and or transportation. So here's another example. If you are in one of those groups, or if you suspect you have, or if you have a pressing issue that you know that your community is facing around the world, a good example is back to the example of Dr. Emmanuel in Lagos, Nigeria.
By the way,
applies through the website, and we do have a process where you can gain access to these programs. It sounds like Kristin was going to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, I said Emmanuel is actually listening on right now. So
sounds good. If I want to do this, I know that we're right at time, or we've already gone over our time. We still have a few other videos that I would love to play. What I'm thinking about doing is doing a wrap. Emmanuel, if you'd like to say a couple of things really quick there in Nigeria, I'd love to hear your voice. let's see, I don't know if Kristin's going to be able to promote you or not. And I know many times we've caught you in noisy backgrounds and stuff like that. But if that, looks like you're coming on. Since you're joining us from Lagos, tell us a little bit more about what's happening.
Hello, Kevin.
Hey, Emmanuel.
Yeah, so where I am is kind of very noisy. I'm on the road.
Well, I tell you what, I appreciate the work that you're doing on the front lines of dealing with different inoculations and taking on infectious disease in Lagos. Is there a word or two that you'd like to share with our audience before we start to wrap up? I tell you what we'll do is, since I think we caught him right in the middle of Lagos traffic, we'll make sure that there's follow-up contact information for you. And thank you for the work that you're doing. It's great to actually have you be a part of this program. You inspire me on a lot of the issues about how you're building a business and saving lives at the same time. So glad to have you be a part of the program. And then as you and others recognize other entrepreneurs that are doing this type of work on the front lines around the world, please make sure that you connect them with the VentureAccess.ngo website, and because we'd like to serve even more entrepreneurs that are doing the innovative work that you're doing.
Kevin, can I make a special plea here? There may be many people actually who've been intrigued and fascinated by this process of entrepreneurship, but don't see entrepreneurship in themselves, and yet they would make great coaches or mentors. I'm going to suggest that there are ways that people can get involved in the enterprise culture by bringing their expertise and their know-how to people who need it. And mentors play a very big role in startup founders and even people who are trying to scale up. I mean, there are different skill sets. So we have a form on our website if you'd like to try and get yourself better involved in mentorship. There are ways that we can do that here at TechRange, and not just us elsewhere. It's a valuable skill. It's how I got involved, in fact, years ago. And I encourage other people who may be not entrepreneurs to consider being a mentor to somebody who is.
Exactly. In fact, whether you're a subject matter expert or a mentor entrepreneur that you have scar tissue to donate to these entrepreneurs, an investor that would like to engage, a corporation that we either through your CSR program would like to support these type of entrepreneurs, or are we looking to drive innovation in your company on the other end of that spectrum, we'd love to engage with you. Kristin just shared in the chat the best way to get a hold of us, just to make sure that we follow up as fast as possible, is to send us a email at start@techrangeaustin.com. That system is used, that goes into a general mailbox that then gets assigned out to our entrepreneurs very quickly. And we'd love to actually engage with you. We do have specific forms for onboarding you into mentorship programs and all the other pieces. Also, if in your ecosystem, if in your community, if there's someone that we should be talking to about these type of programs, let us know. A lot of what's happened, as we heard from Oklahoma, is we end up having like this individual entrepreneur who says, hey, I'm going to take advantage of this just for myself, and does this through our virtual programs. But then in the case of the guys at Starspace 46, what happened is it was an individual entrepreneur that said, hey, do something with us. You know, he started that first stage and then take the next step into starting to talk to, he opened up a conversation with the lieutenant governor, as an example, of Oklahoma. And we'll see where that goes, but, you know, we haven't signed a deal just yet or anything like that, but that's kind of how this onboards into, you know, really driving connective tissue. On my notes here, I have one other thing. The gentleman that was sharing from architecture about how to take an existing architecture and make it COVID-19 as ready as it possibly can be. His name is Jorge Lopez, and I got a note a while ago that he has a later video to share about this. We'll make sure that that is available both as a link on the email that we're going to follow up with, as well as as well as his contact information, along with all the different on the follow-ups. As long as you signed up through Eventbrite, we'll make it a point to send that to you. The main thing about it is to make sure that we disseminate this information as quickly as possible. And then Jorge's information will be there. And like I mentioned, on the monitoring company, Jorge's company from an architecture standpoint, we'll make sure that information is available to you. So let me start the wrap up. If you're interested in the virtual program, you're an individual entrepreneur, or you have an ecosystem that you'd like to engage around a certain set of entrepreneurs, you always can go to techranch.com. But the program that we've been speaking about is the one that I have on the screen right now, called Venture Outfitter. And this is, we recognize that especially in the environment that we're in today, getting access to entrepreneurs, especially as we navigate in a what is clearly a bear market, is going to be important. This program is for you. We will continue to run it, even if, as we are today, the TechRanch team is not working at one of our offices. We're actually working from our homes. We'll continue to have that accessible to you. It's almost like it was designed with this situation in mind that we're presently facing. I promise we didn't see this, but we recognized that there was a need for access to entrepreneurship around the world, especially for supporting the entrepreneurs that have the solution that the world needs. Because, you know, what it is, it's, you know, together we can make an impact. And you're already seeing this with the entrepreneurs that we've heard from today. It's my honor to get to be a part of this process. Sometimes I'd like to say thank you. Some of you saw my most recent Facebook post about the number of you that have picked me up, including my team, and, you know, said, hey, Kevin, okay, you don't get to just be the vision. We're going to drive this through. And, you know, obviously with the world, you know, the situation we're facing in the world right now, it's really an important time to bind together and to deliver this type of work. Entrepreneurs are always the people who can take action the fastest. I'm not trying to say a political opinion. I'm just recognizing that the motivated individual like a Svetlana, who actually, you know, was, you know, received the worst situation of losing her father at 11, then is the type of person I want to bet on to solve that problem that her father faced, that took him away from her at such an early age. That kind of motivation driving forward is inspiring to see how crisis is turned into something really powerful. I'm convinced that it's the entrepreneurs that are going to navigate the fastest through the situations that are happening. I don't mean to say anything to take away from any government in the world, but it's my faith is in entrepreneurs, and the TechRanch team, myself especially, are honored to be a part of the process with you. Again, I'd like to say thank you to the sponsors that made this possible. Art Capital, you know, EFM is now moving to Austin. We'll be working with them. In fact, our next set of meetings on talking about the companies that you just heard about is going to be with them on Tuesday, and I'm excited about that. Dita, thank you for your pioneering work on supporting international entrepreneurs with their accounting issues and how to create accounting situations that actually are favorative, not just for the large corporations, but for these early stage startups. World Affairs Council, Ben and your team, thank you again for all the work. It's been a long-term relationship. We recognize that you guys have really helped us navigate through a lot of the international issues, as well as gain access to some of these ecosystems that are interested. For the team behind the nonprofit, IAC and Cindy, welcome aboard. You know, standing in front of the fire hydrant that you have over the last 4 weeks. Welcome aboard, excited to have that. Eurasia Foundation, again, thank you for having the support for the Russian bridge and the vision that you have with the funds that you've released to IAC for bringing this work. And, you know, as we saw from the two companies that we featured today, obviously, you know, saving lives with the different insight they have. Juice, Heather and her team, thank you for getting more visibility to TechRanch and to the entrepreneurs of this program. It's been great to have you as a friend as well as a collaborator around this, and I'm excited for where this will go, especially in the time that we're entering into. And then finally, I'll just say, hey, TechRanch team, congratulations. I know it's not been easy. It's the last few weeks, especially with all the different curveballs that both I threw as well as life threw at us. I wanted to acknowledge you for your hard work. Kristin, you especially, for doing all the production work. Kristin stayed up till 2 o'clock last night or later. I don't even know how late, but to make sure that a lot of the smoothness that you've seen today is her responsibility. She really went way above and beyond to make today's program possible. If you have a chance, please do reach out to her and acknowledge her, because she's taken probably the lion's work or whatever the biggest load of work over the last few weeks. And so please do acknowledge her. Make sure you take a good portion of next week off. Yeah, we need to touch base on Monday to follow up on all this sort of stuff. But after that, I think you deserve a drink or whatever you want to relax. So thank you for your hard work. All right, well, with that, what we'll do is let's collaborate, y'all. You know, from Austin, Texas to the world, let's make this work. Entrepreneurs are the most empowered people in the world. Let's stand side by side together and make the world, bring prosperity to the world and create the world that we want to see. With that, we'll be available through social media and through that start address. Let us know. Thank you for, I see people from Sweden all the way to, in some of the notes that I got, some of our other Austinites, Nigeria, Mexico, you know, I think I saw a Korean or two on a while ago as well that said hi. And obviously our partners in Australia and Norway. Thank you all very much for today. I greatly appreciate it. With that, we'll call this webinar closed. Keep an eye on us. We'll be doing a lot more of this sort of stuff because we recognize this is one of the ways we can connect with the world the fastest to bring prosperity to the world. Thank you all.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.